everyone. Welcome to Proactive Networking, how to use connections to reel in the big fish. We're so excited to have you guys joining us today, and hi to those of you just joining on the live stream. I have the pleasure of introducing Lou Adler, CEO of the Adler Company. So please join me in welcoming Lou to the stage.
Hey, hi, everybody. You know, many years ago, I actually could jump on that stage, but I can't do that anymore. Also, I didn't know that was the title, because I thought it was going to be 40 years of the wisdom and sophomoric wit of Lou Adler. And what I decided to do is something a little bit different, because I do want to tell some stories of when I became a recruiter. So let me just ask this question. I became a recruiter. I hate that. This chair is for me. I'm actually going to interview myself when I first became a recruiter in 1978. So I'm going to talk to this person who's a little different than this person from 1998 and this person today. I need the chair for this person today full time. So it's what happens as you age a little bit. But let me ask you this. How many of you were born after January 1978? Just please stand up if you were. That's for the steaming room. Just please, this is the warm-up act, which is 90% of you. So I became a recruiter then. We'll close the door. Now, 20 years ago, you can sit. 20 years ago, a bunch of books came out. I wrote a book, my first book based on 16 or 17 years of recruiting. It's called Hire With Your Head, but the subtitle was, which I kept it, was A Rational Way to Make a Gut Decision. At the same time, McKinsey came out with a book, Gallup came out with a book, Good to Great came out, and they all talk about the importance of talent. And in the last 20 years, it's, we're going to win the war for talent, all these new tools. So 1998, I said they're not going to win. How many of you have consistently won the war for talent for top-tier talent? How many of you? I want to hear by show of hands. Now, that doesn't make sense. So a lot of things don't make sense to me. So I wrote a post a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn Talent Blog, and I thought I would just sit here and reminisce a little bit and see if this sounds interesting to you guys. Now, I also have to say, LinkedIn, you know, they do a pretty good thing here. They wanted me to go to the speaker, and they wanted me to practice the speech and get in front of people and practice the speech and have the slides turned in. I said, I'm not going to do it. They said, why not? Because I make this stuff up as I go real time. Because I don't really know what I'm going to say. That's really why I also have the chairs here. So it might be weird to me. It might be weird to you. It's weirder to me. But here's something I've been thinking about since I became a recruiter in 1978. And it's on LinkedIn Talent Blog. It says, why do recruiters need to review 150 resumes to make one decent hire, but only 3 to 4 referrals to make a great hire? Now, that's the mathematics. You don't need to be a rocket science to figure that referrals are pretty cool. But we still try to do better at finding 150 decent people, and we try to do it faster and efficiently. That seems stupid to me. It still seems stupid to me. I never did it. I've never placed an ad in my career. So why do we hire people we know based on their past performance and potential, but we hire strangers based on their past experience and give them lateral transfers? That seems stupid to me if you want to hire great people. Now, here's another one that seems stupid. I'm not going to go through this whole list here, but I'll give you what I think. It really makes me sick to my stomach. And I thought it was the lunch, but it's not. It says, why do hiring managers want to hire candidates who can hit the ground running, but the best people who can hit the ground running want to run on a different track? Well, that's the reality. And if you don't take that into account in your hiring processes, you're never going to hire great people. So you got two people there who are not thinking aligned. Now, so let me just do this other one. How many of you want to hire more diverse talent? A little louder because we're online. How many of you want to hire diverse talent? Okay, so now let me ask you this. We all want to hire diverse talent. Why do we expect them to have the same skills and experience as everybody else and look the same and talk the same as everybody else in our company? Diverse means they're different, which means you have to be different to do it. And then let me ask you the question, how many of you can accurately measure quality of hire at the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel, compare candidates, and then accurately predict on-the-job performance using quality of hire? How many of you can do that? Well, let me say this. Until you can do that, you will never improve quality of hire. All this big data stuff, if you can't measure quality of hire, you're going to screw it up. What I'd like to do today is show you how to do it. And some of you have a little card. Did you get that little card? I call it the magic card. Well, I'm going to show everybody on the stream, wherever you may be, how to get that card. But let me kind of just set the stage here. In 1998, I had this cartoon. I didn't draw it. I had this cartoon drawn. How many of you think it looks similar to what's today? We got all these people, all this money being spent on sourcing. We got this giant candidate pool. We make a lot of mistakes. And I was talking with a number of people who are not my age, but a little bit older. They remembered in 1995, 1996, 1997 that corporate recruiting as a function did not exist. Didn't exist. The only reason that meant, how many of you work for corporations? You're corporate recruiters as opposed to, so just about everybody. Some of you don't want to admit it now that I said that, but that's okay. We got the camera, so we know who that was. The point was companies brought in corporate recruiters to save third-party search fees. And yet, in 20 years, third parties have grown enormously. Corporate recruiting departments have grown enormously. And the cost per hire globally per position has grown enormously. So the idea of doing it was stupid. The same idea, and I'm going to say the reason it's stupid is because you can't measure quality of hire up front. So you're all scrambling for the same people. Everybody can't win for the same people. So I want to kind of go through, I want to use a lot of examples, but I want to give a talk or discuss this talk about two searches. My first search in January 1978. And my most recent search, which I don't do a lot of recruiting, but I helped somebody who's a chairman of a big company, to find a CEO for a very cool organization. I did it exactly the same way. Let me just go, and I always ask 4 questions. This is the first question when you get a search assignment. And if you ask anything else, you are asking the wrong question. What does the person need to do? And what does the most successful people doing that work do differently? So let me go back to January 1978. Just started as a recruiter, but I had run a manufacturing company of 400 people when I did that. It was a stupid decision. I just hated my boss. I quit 4 times in 1 year. And I didn't see my 4-year-old son. I said, I got to do something differently. First assignment was a plant manager making wheels, custom wheels for sports cars and fancy cars. I just happened to be in the automotive industry. I knew the guy who's the president. He and I had worked casually together. So 3 days afterwards, I said, what is a person, no job description. I said, let's walk through your plant. Just walk through your manufacturing plant and see what you need. You need a plant manager. 45 minutes later, the chrome line was terrible, the material flow was terrible, the labor performance was terrible, forward-looking material supply forecasting was terrible. I said, I'll find somebody to turn that around. 6 weeks ago in Los Angeles, I met the chairman of a company who was hiring a CEO for a group called Kidzania.com. If you look it up, Kidzania.com, coolest company in the world. It's going to change how kids think about their lives and careers. He said, Lou, do you want to do the search? I said, good work, I don't want to do it. He said, I'll pay you. I'll either Korn Ferry or you. I said, I don't want to do it. He said, why not? I said, I don't want sleepless nights, but I'll help you find the person. What do you want the person to do? Build 30 major facilities around the country in the next 3 years, each employing 300 people, each that will enable kids to have a life experience that they'll never get anywhere else about the world of work. I need the whole infrastructure built. I need the whole reporting system built. I need the whole hiring system built. Same questions. I found the first guy, the plant manager, in about a week and a half. I found the CEO for that job, starting from scratch, in 3 days. 2 hours worth of work. Maybe it's proactive networking. There are tools out there, guys, but you got to understand what you're looking for. And it's not 150 decent people who you want to have high measures. It's I've got to find 3 or 4 great people who would see this job as a great career opportunity, and I've got to convince them. Number one, I got to talk with all of them. I got to convince them it's a great job. That's called recruiting, guys. And I don't think most of you guys do recruiting. It's not about finding people or doing Boolean searches and hope they respond to your ad. Anybody can do that. That's going to be AI'd out. But then I also asked this second question. Why would a top person want this job? And if you don't know the job, you're selling smoke and mirrors, guys. I never take an assignment where I don't know the job and know the company, the culture, and the hiring manager. That didn't actually choke me up, but probably should have, but that's not why I choked. Maybe it was, I don't know. So you got to understand the employee value proposition. The plant manager was turning a manufacturing facility around and get 3 years experience in 1 year. The CEO of this Kidzania.com was cool. It was the coolest job I ever had, so relatively easy to make that pitch. But then here's the sourcing question I ask. I don't have a lot of time to do this, guys. I said, who knows the ideal candidate? First question I ask. On LinkedIn for the CEO job, I looked at it and I said, here's probably 6 or 8 people who could do the work. I called the chairman up the next day, said, go work, what do you think of these people? He likes this one, I like that one. We then argued, yes, these 6 look great. Let me talk. I said, I don't know that I can get them, but if I can get them, would you talk to them? He said, of course I would. By Friday, we were interviewing 3 candidates. Tuesday to Friday. Hired 1 last week. 4 hours. You guys waste, I'm going to tell you, you waste a lot of time looking at people you're never going to hire. I have a rule. Do not look at a resume or talk to somebody who can't give you a lead to a great person or is a great person. You don't have time to do everything. And this is what I do when I get someone on the phone. I do that today. I did it. I probably didn't do it that many years ago. I certainly did it recently in the last 30. This is the question that everybody will say yes to. 100% of your candidates will say yes to this question. Would you be open to explore a situation if it was clearly superior to what you're doing today? It's a different process. Not you're interested in the job. When they say yes, you don't tell them about the job. You say, great, let's have a conversation. See if we can get you to a career move, and I'll tell you what that looks like. But how many people here want to hire great people? Tell me. You all want to hire great people, right? There's only 4 of you. Maybe that's what I got to start thinking about. Okay, which chair? I don't know, all the chairs. Everybody wants to hire a great person. But it's a great job, but without that great job, you're never going to hire a great person. And if you have any skills, any must-haves, any competencies, anything other than why this is a career move written in your postings, you're not going to hire a great person. They won't apply. So the first thing is you have to have a great job. So I don't know if you guys know my background. Some of you probably do. I'm an engineer, systems engineer, worked on guidance systems for missiles my first year, then got into manufacturing, high-volume manufacturing. So I have a process control background. Are you my joint speaker?
No, I wish I was.
Oh, well, come on up. We can figure it out. I'll ask you some softball questions. So here's the idea. You cannot optimize. So let me give you the whole, what I call the performance-based hiring process. You have to have a great job. I have never, and any recruiter who's worked for me or has taken any of our training, has never used a skills-based job description. If someone says they need to have great communication skills, I say, what does that look like on the job? Tell me what that looks like so we can all measure it. But I really ask, what does this person need to do to be successful? And why would a top person want it? And it's always 4 to 5 performance objectives. Now I've got to, and I get everybody in the hiring team to agree to these. Because if you don't, their biases and their own idiotic ways of interviewing will take place. That's first. Number 2, you probably know this, great people don't look for jobs the way average people look for jobs. And I've been through so many tech conferences, they're trying to weed out from the average. Why? I can get 3 great referrals or direct source 3 people I think I can cherry pick who look at the job and say, that's a career move. I'm working with 10 to 12 people. Never need more than that. Why? How many people are you going to hire per job? 1? So why do you need more than 5 or 6 to start with? As long as there are 5 or 6 good ones. So you start thinking about the problem, but that's only the second problem. The third problem is everybody thinks behavioral interviewing is good. It's terrible. Behavioral interviewing will prevent you from hiring good people. All it will prevent you from doing is avoiding mistakes of average people. And that because you're avoiding mistakes of hiring an average person, you can justify it statistically. But his next book, I don't know if you guys read Michael Lewis's new book, the guy from Moneyball, called The Undoing Project. Everything you know about human nature is wrong. Behavioral interviewing is one of those things. I'm interviewing a candidate. It's not just about assessing them. I got to convince the person, number 1, how many of you have enough money to pay the top 20% what they deserve? Now you got a limit on who you can hire. It's based on money. But if you can show that person it's a career move, the money becomes less important. It's negotiable. You got to think about this whole thing from beginning to end, every single moment. So I know that since 1983, I knew I never had enough money in the budget. Never. So I said, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I'm going to find people who see that job as a career move. Then the money will become negotiable. Got 95% of the people to agree the money was unimportant. So when I talk to somebody, I call it putting them on the red bus, which I'll explain in a minute, but I'm thinking about it now. I call someone up. Would you be open to explore a situation if it was clearly superior? And they say, well, yeah, but what's the money? So you got to retort that. Well, let's be real frank. If the job doesn't represent a career move, it doesn't matter what we pay you. Let's first see if it's a career move. So don't filter people on the money, make it a negotiating item. But you still got to do the career move, which I'll tell you in a little bit. Then you got to close the deal. And if you're going after the top 20% guys, the people you put at the top of the funnel, if they're really good, they're going to get a counteroffer. That's the way it is. That's the way good people do it. So you got to build that in. Okay, how am I going to prevent somebody you put at the top of the funnel who's really good? Why, if you know they're an A-level talent or B+, you know they're going to get a counteroffer. So you got to anticipate that, how you write your ads, how you interview, who gets involved, and when you get to the close. So part of the interview is to set up the close. None of those things are hard, but you just got to think about them. That's a system. So if you target with 100 average people, but I got 5 great ones, I only care about the 5 great ones. And most of those are going to be referred, or I call it clever Boolean. They're going to be direct source people who I've cherry-picked, who I would see this job as a career move. Now, does somebody have one of those little magic cards? Can I just borrow it for a second? I'll promise I'll give it back to you. I've got a garage full. Now, I don't know if you guys have been to Poco Loco. No, it's some Mexican restaurant. Doesn't matter. I was sitting there and I had a trifold menu. This was about 20 years ago. And I said, I think I can put my whole book, the first book, on this card. And I did. And I cried. Pretty super. 20 years of work put in here. But this is 20 years. If you use this card, it shows you how to define the job, shows you how to interview a candidate, and how to calculate quality of hire. That's pretty magical, right? Anybody watching the stream, you can get it. Bud URL. Actually, I don't think that's the right. Well, try it. That might be the right one. I've changed it, but that one should work. So if it doesn't work, email me and we'll get you the right one. This is magical. Now, I don't know if we have any LinkedIn sales reps here, but I saw Ariel Eckstein. He's running Europe, and he's doing something else now. And I saw Mark Labasco. I said, I met these guys about 7 or 8 years ago. I met these folks when I did my first LinkedIn. No, actually, I did it before. I did interviewing training at LinkedIn. And how many of you have a real good sales rep? Well, I'll restate it. It's not fair. If you have a real good sales rep, they were hired by some sales manager using this card. If you have a crappy sales rep, they took a shortcut and didn't use the card. It really is magical. Sorry, that was the magic part. It's supposed to go right in your hands and explode. Didn't work. We've been working on that for 3 hours, but unfortunately it messed up. So this really is a magic card. That's 20 years of experience in there. What's also magical, let me before I know you guys all saw the Apple product introduction 3 or 4 weeks ago. They had some magic recruiting apps. Phenomenal. Turns out it's a watch, which really not a watch, it's a phone. Not a very good phone, but it's a great recruiting app. I consider the phone to be the most important thing you can do for recruiting because you got to talk to people. You don't need a lot of people, but you need to talk to a few people. I call it small batch, high touch, but you're talking to people and convincing them your job represents a move. What's also magical is the phone is no longer a phone, it's a camera. Which they didn't even say it was a phone, they just said it's not a phone, it's a camera. So that was kind of weird to me, but nonetheless, I looked at it from a recruiting perspective. Nonetheless, that magic card is truly magic, and if you use the watch or the phone, you will hire better people as a result. But here's the reason why. And I think this is at the root cause of why we spend a lot of time in the wrong places. There are 2 talent markets, and I'm going to ask you a question when I describe this to tell me which one are you playing in. There's a job market, and there's a career market. The job market is based on skills and experience. The career market is offering people career growth. Job market's about 20% based on a lot of research. It's actually, for high demand positions, probably 10 to 15%. The job market's at least 80%. So all the semi-passive, semi-interested, and truly passive candidates are hidden. And I have a mechanical engineering background, so I see 2 gears. The job market is going around efficiency, being as efficient as you can. The career market goes around real slow. But you don't need a lot of people to do it, so your end result is the same. So let me make this statement. No, so here's the question I have. How many of you for thinking about your most important positions, most important ones, have a scarcity of talent? Everybody wants these people, or do you have a surplus? First off, how many have a scarcity of talent? A little louder so everyone can hear for the voice. Just about every, that was good. Dennis, are you here, Dennis? Say Dennis has a scarcity of talent. I don't care. Say it again, because I want to make a point here. How many of you have a scarcity of talent? Okay. Let me make this statement then, and this is profound. I probably thought about it 20 years ago, and I can make it today. You can't use a surplus of talent model when a surplus of talent doesn't exist. And if you guys are trying to be efficient in the job market in a surplus situation, you will fail. And that is fundamentally the reason why we haven't won the war for talent. And anybody, I'll be happy to argue that. I'll even buy you a very nice dinner tonight if you're not going out with LinkedIn, and I'll prove that to you. You cannot use a surplus of talent strategy of weeding out the weak, trying to be efficient at the top of the funnel when you don't have great people in it, because all you're going to do is have 150 pretty decent people who are looking for a job. To me, this is probably the most important thing I've ever said in my whole career. So let me kind of talk about it. In the efficiency market, you put out all these postings and you hope a good person gets on your bus. And the bus ride is my metaphor for transactional recruiting. Do you have the skills? Do you go into our direction? Do you want to go to our stop? What's your salary? Can you pay the fare? Get on, get off. And it's a very transactional process. The best people don't make decisions that way. LinkedIn had a survey 6 weeks ago that said the reason good people leave companies is because they're on a slower career trajectory. Well, that's been known for years. So you got to offer people a better career. That's why I say, hey, would you be open to explore a situation if it represented a better career opportunity? Yes. What's the money? It doesn't matter what the money is. Let's first see if it's a career opportunity. So you engage in a conversation. Now, the people I put on that bus, I've cherry-picked. They're either referrals, even for the plant manager. I talked to some vendors who were in that space and said, who's the best person you know? I got a couple of referrals. In the olden days, you actually had to look through these olden manufacturing guides to find companies, call up. So it was actually hard to find names of people. For the CEO job, I just said, who would be ideal for this job? So I looked at some places, and I'll give you a couple ideas in a moment here. But I just looked at who would know these kinds of people. And I found a couple, made a couple phone calls. And they all called me back. Pretty compelling. And I used that, didn't use a watch, but I certainly used the phone. So here's some statistics, though, on 20 million hires. And see if these seem likely to you. So this is from a combination, I don't show that there in this picture. This is a combination of Smart Recruiters, the Smart Recruiters ATS, Lever ATS, and Greenhouse. Any of you have any of those ATSs? A few of you, right? Because some Lever people are out there, so it's now a preferred vendor. Just a little plug for them. I was there 2 weeks ago. 20 million applications over the last 2 years. 20 million. Only 200,000 hires. That's 1%. But it was a lot worse if you posted a job. A bad job posting that was boring, you got 150 to 200 to 1 to get a decent person. A good job posting got about 150 to 1 before you found a pretty good, but not a great person. You do some really good creative direct sourcing, and you don't need a lot of Boolean to be great at it. You do not. You just have to be clever at it. Who would see my job as a career move? And now how do you find those people? And then you kind of cherry pick them out. The person's growth rate's a little slower. They might see this, I can get 3 years experience in a year and a half, so I can put them on a faster. So you kind of look at people and said, could I make a pitch to this person if I get hold of them? Then I ask who could connect me with that person. So I have a pool of 20 people I put on the bus. But I know from year after year after year after year that the best placements are still referrals. So let me give you a clue. That's probably a clue from this point. At one point in time, I had about 20 recruiters working in my company. The best ones outbill the average ones by 3 to 4 to 1. 3 to 4 to 1, income and placements. When you looked at their send-outs, it was never more than 3 to 4 send-outs per hire, and 75% of those people were referrals. It doesn't take a rocket science to know you should spend most of your time getting referrals. You might not want to do it because it's uncomfortable, but nobody's going to replace you. If you're going to do it automatically, all the stuff that you can see that scale can actually be replaced by some person. So to me, a recruiter who's changing the direction and raising the talent bar in your company is a strategic asset to your organization. Filling spots based on cost and efficiency is overhead. And you have to do it fast. It's not a strategic win for you. It's not a strategic win for the candidate. It's not a strategic win for the hiring manager. You're just putting a person in place. This is the stuff I think about. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. My wife thinks it's something else, but no, it's that. So I just want to kind of make the statement of what we have to do here. So here's this is a huge recruiting secret. I almost feel badly giving it away. It's just so, fish where the big fish hang out. Why would you talk to people you're not going to hire, or talk to people who don't know people you're going to hire who are A-level talent? Why would you? It just makes no sense. You don't have time to talk to everybody. You have time to talk to these kind of people. Now, when you call these people up and say, would you be open to explore a situation that was clearly superior to what you're doing today, you better know the job. How many of you guys have talked to salespeople who don't know the job, are just in it for the sale? We all do. We don't like these people. Well, how do you think you call someone up who isn't looking for a job and you don't know the job, you're just trying to hustle it? Well, you're not going to get that person. You're going to get the only person who will talk to you, people who need a job. Those are the people you don't want to hire. But they talk to you, so I'm feeling good. I talked to 3 people today. But you didn't present them with, you presented with a lateral transfer, not a career opportunity. So here's the magic of LinkedIn. And I really think it's magical. And I don't even think LinkedIn appreciates this. But as a recruiter, so literally that assignment I did 40 years ago, and I knew a lot of people in the industry that I didn't have the candidate. So I just was on the phone in 24 to 48 hours. Literally, I made my first placement. Got a third of my salary running a company in 3 weeks. I said, recruiting is pretty cool. But I had to get on the phone and pound the phones. Unfortunately, I didn't make another placement for 4 months. Then I was going to quit, and all of a sudden I got it. And I'll tell you the secret, the last thing I say, the secret of getting it. And then after 6 months, I knew how to do recruiting, and I made as many placements as I wanted any month. But this, now again, this formatting a little bit off here, but neither here nor there. It's a different version of PowerPoint. When you think about LinkedIn, most people think of LinkedIn as a database of 500 million strangers. I don't see it as that. It is a structured network. And because it's a structured network, you're only 1 degree of freedom from your ideal candidate. Now, some of you have connections. But how many, if you have a company of more than 100 to 200 or 300 people, you probably have a lot of people in that company whom you don't know that well. So this is what I want to talk about, networking. I don't see LinkedIn as a database. I see it as a network, okay? Now, I might use it as a database to find people, but then I don't send an email. I say, how can I get to that person with a referral? And I spend a lot of time doing that. It turned out the CEO job was so cool, it was relatively easy to do, and I'll give you that answer in a second. But let's think about this, and this I find interesting. In the job market, you're dealing with strangers. And you know when you call someone up you don't know? It's kind of an awkward conversation. Hi, I'm a recruiter. I got this awesome job, and it's, how'd you get my name and all. It's a very uncomfortable conversation on both sides. But Dennis Smith, you here? Probably not. Anybody work for T-Mobile here? Dennis said, the reason I say that, I've known Dennis for 10 years when he first went to T-Mobile, so it's cool to see him. If I called Dennis up and said, hey, Dennis, I got this VP talent job, I just hope nobody from T-Mobile, because I'm not going to call him up. Well, maybe I will. He told me he made a case of tequila, so maybe I will do that. But if I called Dennis up, whom I know, and it's the same way with you, hey, Dennis, I got this interesting spot. It's VP talent. Not sure if you're interested, but would you be at least open to talk? Oh, sure, tell me a little bit about it. The conversation would be very natural and open. It's why when you hire referrals or people whom you work with, it's hey, let's just talk about it. But you hire a stranger, it's not that. I know if I hire Dennis, it's got to be a better career move for him. If I hire somebody else who's looking for the job, it just has to be a lateral transfer. So it's problematic and Dennis will take hours spread over weeks, if not longer, multiple meetings, a lot to do, we've got to probably modify the job. That's the career market, guys. It's almost tailored on both sides for the right person. Job market is, hey, we're going after the 20%, let's just see if we can fill positions fast. And a lot of people working, and to me, that's the big, as I get older, the thing that really bothers me, and this does bother me, is that companies are very short-term oriented. If you're a public company, it's based on earnings. CEOs kind of come and go, candidates come and go, and people come and go. Nobody thinks about long-term anymore. And yet to have a career, it's long-term. but the world of jobs is short term. I haven't figured that one out, but you just think about that. And we're trying to make people change jobs faster. We're all competing for this, but we actually screwed up the trajectory of our economy. And everybody's doing it around the world. That's just the way it is. That bothers me, but I see this as the answer, but I still also see LinkedIn as now, the reason, so I think I've got it here. Yeah, let me here's my question. I'll do the first and last again. Who knows my ideal candidate? Then I'm going to open it up for a few questions. And I said, somebody is already thinking about this, which is not fair. I said, if you guys stump me on a question, I will give you a copy of a book. If you really stump me, I'll sign it. But actually, if I sign it, it's only worth $1.50. If you turn it back to Amazon, you get 10 for it or so. So I don't know what's better. So when I take an assignment, my first question is, remember, 4 questions. What does the person need to do? Second, why would a top person want this job in terms of a career move? Third, who knows my candidate? So let me give you a couple of examples. So I'm thinking, if LinkedIn is a structured network, even if I don't know the first degree connection, I will be able to find and hopscotch around to find the person. So for my plant manager, which was my first search, January 1978, at the time, the idea of posting a posting made no sense because that would be a week and a half, and I just decided I never wanted to do that. And I never did. I personally made 500, 600 placements. The reason, and I've done a few up until, let's say, 2003, 2004, I did that full time as well as had this training company. But then, I got to tell you the story. I forgot about this story. This is a story about referrals and why I got out of recruiting. In the late 80s, early 90s, I was doing a lot of CPAs and accounting searches for managers of accounting, controllers, and financial people, and worked a lot with Disney and some of the big entertainment companies, Warner Brothers and Sony. But I woke up one morning, I don't want to offend anybody here, but I woke up one morning in the mid-90s and said, I never want to talk to an accountant again. Some of you might have had that experience. And I don't want to offend you, but that was the reason I didn't want, so then I just started, and I was also getting general manager searches and VP, so I kind of moved off. But then in 2005, something weird happened. Please don't pass this around. 2005, I get a call from a very nice young woman, apparently a young woman, said she's a senior at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and she got an accounting degree at UCLA, and she got my name, and I talked to her, and she said, I understand you place all accountants, manager, and assistant controller financial jobs in entertainment. I hadn't done that for 10 years. I said, I don't really do that anymore. I'm different phase. She said, well, how'd you find my name? And this is the part that really blew my mind. She said, you placed my grandfather. I went home and cried. When you get referrals from grandchildren, you know you got to hang it up. That's just, you do not do that. Literally, I cry, so I can't do it anymore. So actually, for the last 12 years, I do them at half a dozen searches, but even like this other one I do with the CEO, I do it because I want to stay current, but I don't need the sleepless nights. And it really is, when you do it, it's hard work. It's the hardest way to make easy money. But the plant manager, I said, okay, who would know a plant manager? And I had background in manufacturing. I knew what a plant line, knew what a machining line looked like. So I just started calling vendors in Southern California, because at the time that was the Beach Boys and all this stuff. So I could, and hot rods. So it was relatively easy for me in about a week and a half to find candidates, 3 weeks to hire the person. That was it, 4 candidates. So I have this other rule, which I think you guys should think about this rule. What would happen if you only were allowed to send 3 candidates to a hiring manager and one of them had to get hired? What would you do differently? 3 was the limit. And in fact, you and the hiring manager had a partner and agree that you're only going to do 3. What would you do differently? Well, one thing I do is I say, let me have 4. The first one would be a test case, but the second person better be a hireable candidate. Because that person's not a hireable candidate, you're doing something wrong. So why would you keep on sending candidates? That's called feedback, guys, instant feedback. So what I do is just like I did with Gavork, I presented my 6 or 8 candidates. What do you think of these people? I haven't talked to them. This is on like 24 to 48 hours after I took the assignment. So the thing is, you start thinking about it, and you and the hiring manager say, you're budgeted not on money, but on send-outs per hire. My recruiting team will find you 3 great people. You're responsible for only 3, for only seeing 3. So, and if you need more than 3, you have to budget that, and you both have to come in front of your boss, the hiring manager's boss, and the recruiting, and we're going to talk to see if we should budget you more talent. But there's something wrong with your process. Who does that? That's called feedback, guys. Why do you need more than 3? If you send 2 or 3 and they're not hireable, something's wrong. Why would you keep on doing that? Only HR people do that. I mean, have you ever heard of a manufacturing guy to say, well, we got 100 bad Teslas. Who cares? Let's make 100 more to see if one of them works. Nobody would do that. And HR, you do that. That's some of the things I think about. So here's a plant manager. I just found a connection. In the olden days, it was hard. National sales manager. I had to search for a very cool product line. This was 15 years ago when I was a recruiter. It was going to double the life of every hand tool sold in America, battery life. Well, they were going to sell to Sears, Home Depot, Lowe's. So I just called the buyers up. I got the search. Called the buyer up at Home Depot and started chatting with the guy. Told him what was going to happen. Hey, I got this new product line. I'm a recruiter looking for a national sales manager. About 6 weeks, he's going to come to you. The guy says, have the president call me tomorrow. If it's really due, I'll buy the product line from him. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm a recruiter. I don't want to buy. He calls me the next day, gives me a guy, remarkable guy, had worked at Black & Decker, was miserable. He then got hired 3 weeks later for my candidate. A couple hours of phone calls, guys. Controller. I did have a controller search, a couple of them recently. I just call people who know controllers, and they tend to be people at partner, big CPA firms. I get names. Here's one that was a SourceCon. How many of you are SourceCon aficionados? Well, SourceCon had a contest a couple years ago for an Irish primary school teacher. And they were going through the source code, and they were so proud of it. I knew what was going on. I said, what a bunch of BS that is. I said, who knows Irish primary school teachers? Well, obviously headmasters in Ireland do. I sent emails to headmasters in Ireland. If I was opening a private school, STEM school in Dublin, would you know any teachers who could do it? I said, this is only a test. I got 6 emails in 48 hours back. We know lots of people. A recruiting firm in Ireland whom I know I had worked with, a guy named Paul Carroll, he says, Lou, are you doing a search for a primary school building up? I said, no, it's just a test. It's easy to find people, guys. You have to think out of the box. Don't always think about, I got to go on Boolean and find some active candidate. Get a connection. And they're gold. And I'll tell you what, they're gold because you won't call them back unless they're good. They call you back 100% of the time. Now you just got to recruit them and say, hey, would you be open to explore a situation if it's clearly superior to what you're doing today? So here's, now the CEO. So let me just give you the CEO search real quickly. The company is called Kidzania. It's kind of hospitality and entertainment. I didn't have anybody on Tuesday. I had breakfast on Sunset Boulevard with the chairman. Good guy, just had breakfast there. I was up in LA at the time. And what do you need to do? We discussed it. So I said, there's a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I don't know if you've ever heard of Young Presidents Organization. 5,000 CEOs of companies that are 50 million to 200 million. And they're kind of a lot of these CEOs turn companies around. I said, that's my candidate. Didn't have any connection there, but I looked on LinkedIn. It turned out in Dallas, the headquarters of YPO is there. CEO, looked pretty interesting guy. I sent him an email. I said, I've got this spot. I just sent him a link to the thing with a picture of the website. I said, I need a CEO. He, number one, not connected to me at the time, connects with me instantly, get him on the phone that evening. So now it's Wednesday from Tuesday. He gives me 3 or 4 names. He said, here's the guy you should do. He's really good. Might be too heavy, but he looks pretty good. I looked on his page, and next to it, it says other people who are searching on this candidate. I said, this guy looks good, this guy. So I made 5 calls that day. That one guy who was connected to the first guy was the guy who got the offer last week. And I was on the phone, had interviewed him the next day. LinkedIn is magic, guys. It is magic. Now I can take one, we don't have time. If anybody has a spot, and I'll hang out here and I'll go out there at the end. If you have a position you want to kind of try me out on, at least I'll give you some ideas on how do you kind of figure out, I call them work teams. Who would this person have worked with at some point in their career that would know the person, it's not competing with the person, but would know them well enough to give you a referral. So that's the idea I try to do here. But here's why, and I said this, I'm just putting this in here, you can take a picture. The reason I call referral Gold Star Recruiter. They're gold because they call you back 100% of the time. Number 2, it's a natural conversation. They're qualified, because you wouldn't have called them to begin with if they weren't qualified. So then you ask the yes question. Anybody know the 100% yes question? Would you be open to explore situations clearly superior to what you're doing today? What's the money? It doesn't matter what the money is as long as I give you a career move. What's a career move? This is the next part. In my mind, I tell this proactively whether they say it or not. I said, so let's assume the person didn't ask money. I said, the only way we're going to go forward in this conversation is to look at this job as a career opportunity. It's not about a transaction. It's going to take some time to do this off, but I have to give you, and this job has to give you at least a 30% non-monetary increase. That consists of some job stretch, meaning a bigger job. Job impact, meaning a more important job. Job satisfaction, meaning the mix of work you're doing is more satisfying than what you're doing today. But most important, the growth rate has to be there. You have to get 2 to 3 years experience in 1 to 2 years. Obviously, we're not going to figure that out in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Let me do this, though. Let me review your LinkedIn profile for 5 or 10 minutes. I'll look for the 30%. I'm just going to ask you some questions. If I find the 30%, I'll tell you about it, and we'll schedule some time later to talk in depth. So I don't need a lot of people to do that. More time with fewer people. But I've cherry-picked who I talk with. And then when I find a candidate whom I like, I said, Sean, I really like your background. This is the guy's name. But you really haven't been in this rapid growth situation. And he was a good guy, really good guy, wasn't looking. I said, this would put you on a different career trajectory, but it might be too fast. He said, no, I can do it. Well, tell me about you really been in a chaotic situation where you had to build teams and everything else. And he walked through it. That's recruiting, guys. I didn't sell the guy about the job. I listened to what he wanted. I said, here's a possible move. I said, it might be too big. He sold me. Recruiting isn't you selling the candidate, guys. It's having the candidate sell you who's not looking for a job. Because that guy, Sean, went home that afternoon. He said, I got a call from a recruiter. And his wife said, I suspect his wife said, just like every wife says, I didn't know you were looking for a job. And he says, I'm not. She then says, what's the money, honey? And he said, it's not about the money, it's about the career opportunity. I'm excited about this. The candidate doesn't make the decision alone. You have to take money off the table as soon as you talk to someone because you'll never have enough money in the budget, ever. That's recruiting, guys. You have to have a great job. But you also have to engage with the hiring manager. I've done this every single time. I get a short list. I review with the hiring manager. What do you think of these people? Why would I waste time interviewing candidates if the hiring manager isn't bought in? And I always look for people who are lighter than what he or she put on the job description. These are great people, fast tracker. Yeah, they're really good. I'll see these people. Well, I don't know if I can recruit them, but if I can, will you at least talk to them on the phone? What do you mean? Yeah, I want you to talk to them on the phone. I'll tell you exactly what, I'll script it out. You give them a little bit of background in the job. You ask a few questions. You try to look for the 30%. And if you really like the person, you think they're a high achiever, invite them in. You want me to invite them in? Yeah, I want you to invite them in. And most managers agree. What's good for a recruiter, guys, you've just moved the responsibility of that candidate from you to the hiring manager. You've just engaged the hiring manager in making that decision. And if you think about only 3 candidates to do it, I agree with this. I said, we're only going to do 3, so we got to work as a partnership. It's not serial, we're working it together. So I'm doing a project now, which I guess I haven't told you this, so I should sit down. I think I've told people that I'm going to retire next year. So this is either my last Talent Connect of 8, done them all. Only Glenn, Kathy, and I have done them all. I might get invited back next year, but if you guys rank me low, I won't, but I'll be retired. But I am working on one project with a group from Harvard on how to measure quality of hire at every step in the process. And it's part of this. He's written about me in his book, and he's president of the Center for Individual Opportunity. He's got some pretty serious people, and he's really excited about this. But the idea is to understand what drives human performance. So while you can measure all these things, you also have to do it, and implementation is actually, measuring it is not insignificant, but you got to do it too, which is probably the harder part. Then we go through all the rest of interviewing and taking bias out of the process. So this is the concept that I believe to be true and one I've seen work. I'll be happy to talk with anybody. Let me just kind of close with a few quick summary points. Focus on the career market, not the job market. High touch, small batch, just a few people you've cherry-picked to be great people. Don't try to be efficient hiring the wrong people. You'll feel good, but you're mistaking activity for progress. Ask the 4 questions. What does the person need to do? Why would the top person want this job? Who would know this person? And when you get the person on the phone, would you be open to chat about something to see if it's a career move? Recognize that LinkedIn Recruiter is really magic if you know how to use it. It is not a database. It is a structured network. Take advantage of that. Fish where the big fish swim. Offer people a 30% non-monetary move and spend your time proving it. If you can prove it, money will be less important, and you'll be able to prevent all counteroffers because it forces people to think, from the moment you get them on the phone, forces them to think long term. Not shifting jobs for comp and title and location, but for career opportunity. And you will be able to out-compete on that basis everybody else because they're not doing it. But you got to learn to drive the big red bus. Hiring great people. It's magical. Thank you.